Hey everyone, welcome or welcome back. If you're new here, my name's Nina, and I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and I genuinely feel like guilt is one of the worst feelings that we can experience. It's almost torturous, like a giant knot in our stomach, and of course we all have to deal with it from time to time from certain people. But even though it always feels absolutely terrible, not all guilt is created equal. Sometimes it's a healthy reminder for us to check our actions or a sign that we've made the wrong decision. But other times it really is a wolf in sheep's clothing. It's manipulation disguised as care or concern. In other words, sometimes people can intentionally try to make us feel guilty so they can get what they want. And of course, when this happens, it becomes a very toxic force in our relationships. So today I want to talk about how we can spot the difference and what the red flags are so that we know what's going on. And then I'm going to offer some very real solutions for how to navigate these tricky situations that can also help us become more empowered communicators. Now, if you're curious as to why someone might resort to some of these tactics, please check out the video that I made all about this topic. I will go ahead and link it in the description box below because I think it can be really insightful when we better understand the psychology behind emotional manipulation in general. But I want to start off today's video by talking about the anatomy of a guilt trip and some of the telltale signs that this is indeed what is happening, because a lot of seemingly harmless statements are actually packed with manipulative tactics. So let's talk about some things that we can specifically look out for if a conversation is giving us that guilty feeling. Now, the first thing is exaggerated consequences. Of course, it's natural for someone to feel disappointed when you say no to something, especially when they genuinely care about you. And there is really nothing wrong with them expressing that. But a guilt tripper will inflate the impact of your choice and try to make you feel responsible for their happiness or their lack of happiness, to the point where they can make it seem like your decision bears the weight of their entire emotional well-being. Now, the second thing to look for is emotional manipulation. This is when they use their tears or their anger to try to get you to change your mind. In some cases, they may even get really theatrical or resort to veiled threats to get you to do whatever it is they want you to do. But more commonly, they will try to pull at your heartstrings, hoping that you're going to feel guilty enough to cave in. Another thing that we can look for is personal attacks. They may use phrases like "you're so selfish" or "you don't really care about me" to try to shift the blame and make you the bad guy. So here they try to make it seem like the problem isn't that their needs aren't being met, but it's really you and your supposed character flaws. Now, the next thing can be unspoken expectations. This happens when they try to guilt you without clearly communicating their needs, leaving you confused and feeling obligated to try to somehow decipher their unspoken desires. So instead of having a healthy conversation, you're left to just kind of read between the lines. This one happens a lot when they know on some level that what they are asking for really isn't fair, or when they haven't even considered your needs or your desires. So it's a way for them to get what they want without having to ask you directly. Yet another red flag can be all or nothing ultimatums. This is when they're demanding that you make an inappropriate or unfair choice, like it's either me or your family, or either come with me to this event or the relationship is over. This type of false choice demands immediate compliance, which leaves absolutely no room for discussion or compromise. We can also look out for passive-aggressive comments like, "oh, well, I guess I'm just not that important to you," or "I guess you'd just rather spend time with your other friends." So here they are implying that your choice is causing them to have hurt feelings that could only be rectified by you making the other choice. Now, there are many other signs of guilt tripping, but I think you get the basic idea. It is happening whenever guilt is used as a tool and manipulation is the goal. So what can we do if we are noticing that this is happening? How can we break free of the guilt trap cycle? Well, first, we need to adopt a new motto of validate, don't capitulate. So in other words, acknowledge their feelings, but do not accept responsibility for their happiness. You are not their emotional puppet master. Phrases like, "I understand you're disappointed, but," are powerful starting points. The next step is to express yourself. Calmly explain your perspective and why you disagree with their demands or why you can't comply. Remember, your voice matters here. So share your thoughts and your feelings authentically. A lot of times in these situations, they haven't even considered your perspective. When we do this, it helps them to understand that we're not trying to intentionally be mean or inconsiderate, but rather there are simply factors here that they aren't taking into account. And remember, they may not always agree with our perspective, but it is important that they know what it is. Now, another thing that we can do is to try to seek common ground. In other words, if it's possible, try to come up with some compromises or some alternatives. So for example, you could say, I can't come over this weekend, but I'm happy to come over next weekend. Or I am so sorry I can't attend your fundraiser, but I'm happy to make a donation. Or I'm happy to share the event on social media. It can be really helpful to show your willingness to come up with a solution that works for both of you. But just remember not to cave in. It's all about collaboration and not coercion. However, one of the most important things that we can do is to set boundaries. And I know this one can be difficult for those of us who never really learned this skill or who were actually taught not to have boundaries, but it is truly so essential that we communicate our limits and what we are and what we aren't comfortable with, because a lot of times they simply do not know. But in the end, if the guilt trip persists or the behavior starts to become habitual, you may need to create a little bit of distance for a while until they are ready to treat you fairly. Now, of course, this is a last resort, but it can be necessary in some situations where you really have tried everything, yet the same manipulation tactics come up over and over and over again. And lastly, you can always seek support. Do not be afraid to confide in a trusted friend, family member, or even a therapist. Remember, you are not alone on this journey, and sometimes it can be really helpful to share your experiences and to seek out this type of support. It's also really likely that a lot of these people have had similar experiences, so it can also be helpful to see how they went through it. But overall, please know that you are not in any way obligated to fulfill someone else's emotional needs at the expense of your own well-being. And I know it can be difficult, but we need to start to prioritize our own happiness and realize that we deserve to be spoken to with respect. The goal is to encourage the people in our lives to embrace genuine communication that is built on mutual respect and understanding. And like I said earlier, I do have another full-length video that I will link in the description box below in case you feel like you want to dive even deeper into the topic or you feel like you need a little bit more support. As always, I truly hope you found today's video to be helpful. If you did, please like it, share it, and definitely become a subscriber if you aren't one already. I would love it if you stayed connected. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.